One of the many voluntary savings and loan groups in Kenya. Contrary to Asia, microcredits, according to the model of Peace Nobel laureate Mohamed Yunus, never got a strong foothold in Africa. For a long time, his village bank, Grameen, was regarded as the most practical example for development aid. Now this form of microfinancing has been criticized. Worldwide, the average interest rate of microcredits is 35 to 40%. Many poor people fall into a trap of debts, lacking any collateral and unable to repay the credits and high interests. They have to take further credits with higher interests. Many end up in a slavish dependency on unscrupulous credit sharks, and quite a few choose suicide to maintain their dignity. Most of the poor in African countries, especially women in rural areas, don't need and don't want a credit. What they need is, first of all, decent work. Of course, many of them would also like to have access to capital, ensuring a modest level of livelihood. Voluntary savings and loan provides them with this possibility. This is a system of group-fed savings, which ensures a bearable and reasonable interest rate. It may sound paradox, yet even the poor can save. And small savings within a group guarantee a triple of advantages: security of decent livelihood, access to capital, and personal freedom. Gervasio Mujumba is an example. Gervasio is 31 years old, married and caring for 2 children of school age. He is a member of savings and loan group Karimi in Ishira, a village in the southeast of Mount Kenya. Gervasio is trading in goats. He saves at least 30 Kenyan shillings per week, which seems to be very little, but many of these small contributions can make up a considerable amount. With the help of a loan from his group, Gervasio was able to buy 8 goats for his surroundings. Now, his income-generating work consisted in bringing the goats to the next market and selling them to a higher price. On the weekly market of Isharia, he sold 3 goats and achieved a profit of 600 Kenyan shillings, which is about $8. In good times, he succeeds 2 or 3 times per week like this, so that he can count on a monthly income of about $80, which is a lot of money by Kenyan standards. With this income, he can finance a decent livelihood for his family and pay the school fees for his children. And even more, this income-generating work makes it easy for him to repay the loan and the interest rate of 10%. Through this way, the capital stock of the group's cash box is growing too. Child Fund Kenya, a well-known NGO or non-governmental organization, introduced savings and loan in the Mantunga region near Mount Kenya. Silas Kinulia is one of the project leaders. Together with an assistant, he teaches the groups why savings makes sense and for what a loan can be used. The group learn that savings are necessary in order to help oneself and to accumulate capital for necessary outlets. Why do you borrow capital? We borrow for financing education and also small businesses, and for rent, travels, medication, funerals, and basic nutrition. With a simple example, Silas shows how small saving contributions can lead to a considerable capital stock within a relatively short period. In a group of 10, each member regularly saves 200 Kenyan shillings, about $2.6, and the accumulated savings is lent and then repaid at an interest rate of 10%. After 10 meetings, the capital stock increased to 31.875 Kenyan shillings, which is about 420 US dollars. At the end of the cycle, usually 1 year, the accumulated capital stock is distributed equally among the group members, creating by this way an additional income source. Some group members take a loan in order to pay school fees for their children. Most of them, however, use the loans to make small businesses with modest gains by buying and selling different kinds of cereal, chicken, goats, and food. They make profit by the margin, which means buying at a low price on the countryside and selling at a higher price on the market in the agglomerated areas, or the other way round, depending on the kind of goods. The small village, Ishiara, is one of these marketplaces on which they can cheaply buy or sell.
Now, the greatest problem towards the understanding of ESDM by group members is the issue.
Silas Kinuya, one of the project leaders of Child Fund Kenya, underlines in this interview how much members of the group prefer taking loans from people to whom they are close instead of borrowing money from just anybody. The standard of living has clearly improved and stabilized for all group members. He also positively emphasizes the discipline of savings. Most challenging, however, are recurring droughts, plant diseases and animal epidemics. Microinsurance might help in such cases. Also, the limitation of small loans does not always correspond with members' wishes, who would like to take bigger loans for larger investments. For example, in water irrigation systems, grain silos, plows or tractors. On the way to Tego Od Deo, which means strengthening the house of Nani. This saving and loan project is located in Kendu Bay, a small village in Nyanza at Lake Victoria, Kenya's poorest province. Child Fund Deutschland, together with another European NGO, supports here grandmothers who care for orphans and children vulnerable to other reasons like HIV and AIDS. One of these groups is called Boya, in English, Among Us, thus emphasizing solidarity among the groups. Each of the group's 28 members cares for 3 to 4 children, and each member saves at least 20 Kenyan shillings per week, 26 US cents, and pays 10% interest for a loan. In addition, 5 Kenyan shillings per week have to be contributed for a social fund. The group has been given its own constitution. Solidarity is the highest goal. Members expect in particular support in case of death or illness of relatives and children. Furthermore, the constitution contains strict rules. Missing or coming late to the meeting or talking during the meeting is punished by 5 Kenyan shillings. Not paying back the loan in time costs 20 Kenyan shillings. The meeting takes place under trees of a small farm. Almost all of the nannies are busy withdrawing ropes of sisal. Later on, they are going to sell the ropes on the market for a few shillings. Teresia, the head of the group, leads the meeting with great energy. 7 women alone are reprimanded for being late and have to pay a fine of 5 Kenyan shillings into the cash tablet. Teresia is assisted by a secretary and a bookkeeper. In front of her sits the cashier. After the presence control, all members pay the weekly contribution and their fines. The repayment of the loans, including interest rates, follows. Everything is meticulously recorded by the group's secretary. At the end, secretary, bookkeeper and cashier calculate and control the contents of the cash box. Now the time has come to apply for loans in the size between $15 and $65. At this meeting, the amount of loans demanded is much higher than the amount in the cash box. This is the moment for a young moderator to step into action. He belongs to one of the 4 youth groups which have been established and trained by Child Fund Kenya in this region to support the savings and loan groups. Under his guidance, the discussion and settlement leads to the result that all members asking for a loan have to accept cuts, yet cuts varying according to the degree of need and earlier loan taking. The bookkeeper area, for instance, was asking for 4,000 Kenyan shillings, but it was only awarded 1,600, about $20. At this meeting, mainly loans for paying school fees are demanded. The project leader, however, explains this is an exception because schools just started a new term at the beginning of the year. How do the grandmothers assess the utility of saving and loan? The group leader, Teresia, says, "Thanks to the nanny project, I am able to pay the monthly fees for my son in Nairobi." The bookkeeper Araya makes clear that saving and loan is not only beneficial for the education of children, but also securing their livelihood. Our savings and loan group often provided me a loan. I put it into my small businesses and made some profit, which I need for paying school fees. And besides, it leaves me with some money for eating at home and buying soap. That's why I appreciate the nanny project. Child Fund Kenya also finances theatre groups to support the grandmother projects. With their particular means, they fight discrimination against AIDS orphans or other vulnerable children. They also want to do something against discrimination in those of the grandmothers who take care of persons affected by AIDS. AIDS, HIV is considered here not only as an illness, but also as a punishment by ghosts. Before the performance, the artists stroll through the village with great tam-tam in order to attract the people. The story of the day is about a small family. A couple has adopted an orphan as a daughter to be at the side of their son. The son is lazy and a bad schoolboy. Nevertheless, he is supposed to attend secondary school. The daughter is hard-working and gets good marks in school. However, by the will of the father, she should marry instead of attending further school. That's the reason why she is often crying and complaining, so that a neighbour starts to support her. However, the father remains hard. Eventually, the village community interferes. They are of a divided opinion. Now the theatre group encourages the spectators to participate and gets a woman from the audience. The woman is determined to help the daughter and makes proposals how the family could raise the additional school fees and compensate for the missing help of the daughter in the household and in the fields, for example, by selling a piece of land or by entering savings and loan group.
We have a variety.
Wallace Amayo, head of Department of Child Fund Kenya, brings the overall assessment of savings and loan system precisely to the point. The need of simple, easily accessible and transparent loans based on savings is enormous. Only just 10% of the adult population in Kenya has access to bank credits. Therefore, 90% has no access. The central bottleneck for a further expansion of savings and loan is lack of trained teachers, because organizing and advising the groups really requires many staff. He expresses great concern about how to cope with the next two necessary steps. First, the step from mini-credits to microcredits that leads to the higher income generating activities or even larger investments. Specifically for Kendu Bay, he thinks of projects and investments into the production of yogurt, cheese and milk, or an expansion of the product range based on sisal. For example, doormats, stuffing for mattresses, or construction materials substituting asbestos. Particularly problematic, he thinks, is the habit to distribute the whole capital stock at the end of the saving and loan cycle. This means that at the beginning of the new cycle, usually after 1 year, the group has to start with an empty basket. By this way, it seems impossible that sufficient capital can be accumulated for larger investments or for acquiring the status of receiving larger loans from banks. Second, external circumstances like droughts and epidemics can again severely delay all the efforts as long as no microinsurance is available to buffer such shocks. Child Fund Kenya works on a solution. There are still some problems and hurdles have to be mastered, but Savings and Loan already has made remarkable progress. The self-determined groups exercise solidarity, urge to save and encourage taking loans for income-generating activities. Women profit most because in this way they gain their own income, which enhances their social status at home and in the community. And last but not least, their children benefit too. There is an old African proverb which says, "A gift means to save." With microcredits, there is the danger that this sort of solidarity as precondition for substantial development gets lost. Savings and Loan, as an alternative form of microfinance, revitalize this thought.